Every day, more than 1,000 ships pass through a narrow waterway that cuts across the heart of Central America. Some carry cars, others transport oil, natural gas, food, medical supplies, electronics, and countless products that millions of people depend on every single day. Without this passage, many of those ships would have to travel thousands of extra kilometers around South America, adding weeks to their journey, increasing costs, and slowing global trade. At first glance, the Panama Canal may look like nothing more than an engineering achievement, but in reality, it is one of the most strategically important waterways on Earth. For over a century, it has connected two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, transforming the way the world moves goods, changing global commerce forever. Before the canal existed, ships traveling between New York and San Francisco faced an enormous challenge. They had only one option: sail around Cape Horn. At the southern tip of South America, the journey was long, dangerous, and unpredictable. Powerful storms, massive waves, freezing temperatures. Many ships never completed the voyage. The distance was nearly twice as long as it is today through the Panama Canal. For growing economies, that meant higher transportation costs, slower deliveries, and fewer trading opportunities. The world needed a shortcut, but building one would become one of the greatest engineering challenges in human history. The idea of connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans had existed for centuries. Explorers dreamed about it, merchants imagined it, governments debated it, but the technology simply did not exist. Then, at the beginning of the 20th century, everything changed. The United States decided to build what many believed was impossible. Thousands of workers arrived from around the world. They faced relentless tropical heat, dense jungles, heavy rainfall, landslides, and deadly diseases such as malaria and yellow fever. For years, construction pushed both engineering and human endurance to their limits. Every lock, every excavation, every concrete wall required extraordinary effort. When the Panama Canal finally opened in 1914, the world entered a new era. A voyage that once took weeks longer could now be completed in a fraction of the time. International trade accelerated. Shipping became faster, cheaper, and more efficient. The canal quickly became one of the world's most important economic arteries. Today, its importance extends far beyond commercial shipping. It influences global supply chains, energy markets, military logistics, and international politics. A delay of only a few hours can affect ports thousands of kilometers away. A disruption lasting days could ripple across the global economy. That is why governments, shipping companies, and military planners all pay close attention to what happens inside this narrow passage. Because the Panama Canal is no longer just an engineering masterpiece. It has become one of the world's most valuable strategic assets. But there is another question that many people have never asked. If the United States built this incredible canal, why doesn't America control it today? The answer begins with one of the most controversial political decisions of the 20th century, and it completely changed the future of the Panama Canal. If the Panama Canal was built by the United States, why doesn't America own it today? For nearly a century, the answer seemed obvious. The United States not only built the canal, it also controlled the land surrounding it. Known as the Panama Canal Zone, this territory functioned almost like an American enclave inside Panama. The U.S. military protected it, American engineers operated it, and Washington controlled one of the world's most valuable trade routes. For the United States, the canal was more than an economic asset. It was a strategic advantage. American warships could move rapidly between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans without sailing around South America. Commercial shipping flourished, trade expanded, and America's global influence grew alongside the canal. But inside Panama, many people saw a different reality. Although the canal crossed their country, they believed they had little control over one of their greatest national resources. As the years passed, demands for greater sovereignty became stronger. Demonstrations grew, political tensions increased, and the future of the canal became a sensitive international issue. Then, in 1977, a decision changed everything. U.S. President Jimmy Carter and Panamanian leader Omar Torrijos signed two historic treaties. The agreements established a gradual transfer of control. Instead of remaining under permanent American administration, the canal would eventually belong entirely to Panama. The decision immediately divided public opinion. Supporters argued that returning the canal would strengthen relations between the two countries and recognize Panama's sovereignty. Critics warned that the United States was giving up one of its most valuable strategic assets. The debate lasted for years. Finally, on December 31, 1999, the transfer was completed. For the first time since its construction, the Panama Canal came under the full administration of Panama through the Panama Canal Authority. Many observers wondered what would happen next. Could Panama successfully manage one of the world's busiest waterways? The answer surprised many. The canal continued operating efficiently. Traffic increased. Major expansion projects were completed. Larger ships began crossing the canal, and Panama earned international recognition for its management. For years, the transition appeared to be a success. But as the global balance of power began to change, a new player started becoming increasingly visible: China. Chinese companies expanded investments across Latin America. Trade between China and Panama grew rapidly. Infrastructure projects multiplied, and businesses connected to Chinese interests became involved in operating major ports near both entrances of the canal. To many people, these developments were simply part of global commerce. But to some policymakers in Washington, they raised a new strategic question. If the United States no longer controlled the canal, and China was expanding its economic presence around it, could America's most important maritime shortcut eventually become vulnerable to geopolitical competition? That question has become one of the most closely watched issues in modern international relations. Because today's competition is no longer only about armies. It is also about ports, infrastructure, investment, and global influence. China's growing presence around the Panama Canal did not happen overnight. It developed gradually through trade, investment, infrastructure, and long-term economic partnerships. Over the past 2 decades, China has become one of Latin America's largest trading partners. As Chinese companies expanded across the region, Panama naturally became a country of enormous strategic interest. Its location connects 2 oceans, its ports serve ships from every continent, and its canal remains one of the busiest maritime corridors on Earth. Chinese businesses invested in logistics, port facilities, and transportation projects throughout the region. Some of the largest port terminals near the entrances of the canal have long been operated by companies based in Hong Kong. It is important to understand one key fact. The Panama Canal itself is operated by the Panama Canal Authority. It is not controlled or operated by China. However, the presence of Chinese-linked companies around nearby ports and infrastructure has attracted increasing attention from policymakers in Washington. To many economists, these investments are a normal part of global business. To many American security officials, they raise strategic questions, because in today's world, influence is not measured only by military bases. It is also measured by infrastructure, shipping networks, ports, telecommunications, and supply chains. Whoever gains influence over these systems can strengthen their economic position on the global stage. That is why the Panama Canal has become part of a much larger geopolitical competition. Not because one country controls it, but because many powerful nations understand its importance. The United States continues to view the canal as essential to global commerce and regional security. American officials have repeatedly emphasized the importance of keeping this international waterway open, reliable, and free from undue political pressure. China, meanwhile, continues expanding commercial relationships throughout Latin America. From Beijing's perspective, these investments support economic growth and international trade. From Washington's perspective, they deserve careful attention because critical infrastructure can carry long-term strategic significance. This difference in perspective explains why the Panama Canal has become a symbol of 21st century competition. Unlike the Cold War, today's rivalry is not fought only with tanks or missiles. It is also shaped by investment, technology, global trade, critical infrastructure, and economic influence. Neither side wants to interrupt international shipping. The global economy depends on stability. Every nation benefits when goods continue moving efficiently between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. That is why diplomacy and cooperation remain essential. But strategic competition continues to grow. Every new investment, every infrastructure project, every commercial agreement is carefully analyzed by governments around the world, because each one may influence the balance of power for decades to come. The Panama Canal is no longer simply an engineering wonder. It has become one of the places where economics and geopolitics meet. And while competition continues peacefully today, many experts continue asking the same question. What would happen if this vital waterway were suddenly disrupted? The answer goes far beyond Panama. It could affect prices, supply chains, global markets, and millions of people who have never even seen the canal. If the Panama Canal were ever forced to shut down, even for a short period, the effects would be felt across the entire world. Thousands of ships rely on this narrow passage every year. Without it, many would have no choice but to sail around the southern tip of South America. That detour adds thousands of kilometers to every voyage. More fuel, more time, higher transportation costs, and eventually, higher prices for consumers. A single delay at the canal can affect factories on another continent. A prolonged disruption could slow global supply chains for weeks. Manufacturers might wait longer for essential parts. Retail stores could experience shortages. Shipping companies would face higher operating costs. And international trade would become more expensive. The impact would not stop there. Energy markets could also react. Oil and liquefied natural gas shipments moving between the Atlantic and Pacific would face longer routes and higher transportation costs. Financial markets would likely respond to the uncertainty. Investors closely watch strategic choke points like the Panama Canal because they understand how important they are to the global economy. History has already shown that unexpected disruptions to major shipping routes can affect prices around the world. That is why governments constantly work to strengthen the resilience of global supply chains. The Panama Canal is one of several maritime choke points that keep international commerce moving. Its continued operation benefits every trading nation, but the canal represents something even larger. It reminds us that geography still shapes global power. Technology has transformed the world. Aircraft cross oceans in hours. Satellites connect continents instantly. Yet a waterway only about 82 kilometers long continues to influence international trade, economic growth, and strategic planning. That is extraordinary. The Panama Canal is not simply a shortcut. It is a symbol of how engineering, geography, economics, and geopolitics intersect. It connects oceans, it connects markets, and in many ways, it connects the modern world itself. The competition surrounding the canal is not only about who builds ports or invests in infrastructure. It is about securing reliable trade routes, protecting economic interests, and maintaining stability in an increasingly interconnected world. That is why the Panama Canal remains one of the most closely watched strategic locations on Earth. Its future will not be determined by a single country alone. It will be shaped by diplomacy, international cooperation, economic investment, and the choices made by nations that all depend on global trade. One thing is certain: as long as ships continue carrying the goods that power the global economy, the Panama Canal will remain far more than a remarkable engineering achievement. It will remain one of the world's most important strategic gateways. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Global Origins for more in-depth stories about geopolitics, global trade, and the forces shaping our world. Leave a like and tell us in the comments. Do you think the Panama Canal will remain a symbol of international cooperation, or will it become one of the world's next major geopolitical flashpoints? Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next documentary.